I have a rendezvous with death. We'll preserve the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
No fear. No political correctness. No wokeism. You're listening to Underground USA.
As we prepare once again to celebrate Christmas, a time of year when we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, peace on earth and goodwill towards all men, a dark alliance is crystallizing before our eyes, both in the United States and across the West. Islamism, militant Marxism, and anti-Christian progressivism have coalesced in their shared disdain of the Christian foundations of Western civilization and are now openly synthesizing to dismantle them. What binds these three ideologies is not mere tactical convenience. It's a visceral, existential loathing of the cross, of individual conscience, and of any authority higher than the totalitarian collective or theocratic caliphate. Each detests Christianity because Christianity birthed the very concepts of human dignity, free will, and limited government that now stand in their way. Islamism assaults Christianity in the public square with ever bolder demands of supremacy. In the United States, we see Muslim-majority school boards in places like Michigan pushing to remove Easter and Christmas references while aggressively inserting Ramadan celebrations. Dearborn Public Schools now broadcast the Islamic call to prayer over loudspeakers, an act unthinkable for a Christian prayer. Mosques across the country, funded by Qatar and the Muslim Brotherhood, openly distribute literature calling for the eventual subjugation of disbelievers. The Council on American Islamic Relations, an organization with documented Hamas ties, sues any locale that dares reject the construction of megamosques and intimidates critics with accusations of Islamophobia until Christian symbols are stripped from public view. The goal is simple: dhimmi status for Christians, second-class citizenship under expanding Sharia zones. Marxism, reborn as democratic socialism and anti-racism, wages war on Christianity through the capture of institutions. The Biden administration's FBI memo labeling traditionalist Catholics potential domestic terrorists for attending Latin Mass was not an aberration. It was policy. Public school curricula now teach children that Christian ethics are inherently bigoted and that the nuclear family, rooted in Christian anthropology, is a tool of white supremacy. And corporate HR departments force employees to recite land acknowledgments and DEI pledges that implicitly condemn the Christian missionary past as genocide. The Marxist demand for total politicization of life leaves no room for the Christian distinction between city of God and the city of man. Everything must be subordinated to the revolution. Anti-Christian progressivism, the most insidious of the three because it masquerades as compassion, completes the pincer movement. Drag queen story hours in public libraries, funded by taxpayer dollars, are deliberate cultural norm destroyers designed to sexualize children and mock the Christian view of innocence. Laws in Canada and proposed in California threaten priests with imprisonment for refusing to use preferred pronouns or for teaching biblical morality in private. And the Eucharist itself is now mocked in art exhibits and inclusive church services that celebrate abortion as a sacrament. Progressivism's core dogma, that the autonomous transgender self is the only God, cannot coexist with a faith that proclaims, if any man would come after me, let him deny himself. Each of these ideologies is fundamentally incompatible with freedom, liberty, individualism, and Western culture. Islamism demands submission. That's the literal meaning of the word Islam. There is no private conscience exempt from the Ummah, no separation of mosque and state, no equality before the law between Muslim and non-Muslim. Apostasy is punishable by death. Women are legally worth half of a man, and the endgame is a global caliphate. Marxism requires the abolition of private property, the destruction of the family, and the erasure of all non-class-based identity, especially religious identity. The individual is nothing. The collective is everything. Every Marxist regime in history has moved swiftly to crush the church because Christianity teaches that man's ultimate loyalty belongs to God, not the party. Anti-Christian progressivism replaces the imago Dei with the sovereign, sexually liberated consumer. It cannot tolerate a religion that speaks of sin, judgment, and objective truth. Its therapeutic totalitarian impulse demands that every knee bow to the latest sexual orthodoxy enforced by cancellation, deplatforming, and, increasingly, state power. History is unambiguous about where such alliances lead. Islam conquered the Christian Middle East and North Africa in the 7th and 8th centuries, turning the cradle of Christianity into a wasteland of dimitude and demolished churches. Spain required 8 centuries of Reconquista to reclaim its Christian soul. The Balkans still bleed from 5 centuries of Ottoman rule. Marxism murdered over 100 million people in the 20th century alone. The Bolsheviks dynamited cathedrals, shot priests in the back of the head, and sent nuns to gulags. Mao's Cultural Revolution saw Red Guards desecrate churches and force Christians to bow before his portrait. Every Marxist experiment ends the same way: the church in the catacombs or the cemetery. Anti-Christian progressivism has its own bloody resume. The French Revolution's de-Christianization campaign guillotined thousands of priests and nuns and turned Notre Dame into a temple of reason. The Spanish Republic's Red Terror in 1936 saw 6,800 clergy murdered in 6 months, their bodies mutilated and displayed. Today's soft totalitarianism simply uses social credit scores, bank deplatforming, and child protective services instead of firing squads. Christians, especially Catholics, who remain the largest and most visible target, and Jews, who are next on the list after the church is broken, must wake up. This is not a culture war. It is a war of conquest, with 3 armies marching under different banners towards the same goal: the extinction of the Christian memory of the West. We must push back intelligently, build parallel institutions, homeschool ruthlessly, support politicians who still fear God more than the New York Times, refuse to fund the regime's propaganda mills disguised as universities. Most of all, stop pretending dialogue and coexistence are possible with ideologies that have openly declared war on your faith, your family, and your freedom. If this nexus is not stopped, the West will suffer the same fate as Constantinople in 1453, as Russia in 1918, and Spain in 1936. The bells will fall silent. The cathedrals will become museums or mosques, and liberty will be a forgotten word. Ask yourself this question as we head into the Yuletide. When we wish others peace on earth and goodwill towards men, is everybody wishing the same thing for you and yours? The totalitarians are counting on your naivete and our niceness. Do not oblige them. When we come back, our segment on America's Third Watch, broadcast nationally from our flagship station, WGUL, AM 860 and FM 93.7 in Tampa, Florida.